Hi folks, this is Rockman Pat, Northwest Treasures, and we are filming here in the Cabinet Mountains for another Geotalk. By the way, if you like these Geotalks, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Now, the Cabinet Mountains, nobody's really ever heard of the Cabinet Mountains, but they're a long chain forming part of the Rocky Mountains, more than a dozen of these ranges here forming the Rocky Mountains in Montana. The Cabinet Mountains are sedimentary blocks of shale and earns their name, the Cabinet Mountains. They look like lots and lots and lots of cabinets there. But with 150 miles long and several hundred square miles of this shale like this is pretty much good evidence for the Genesis flood. All these sediments laid down very rapidly, quick succession, and then you can tell some of these rocks have been faulted and pushed up, others have been folded. Now, of course, folded rocks would indicate that they must have been folded while they were still pliable, because rocks don't fold, they snap, they break. But anyway, that's one of the big events, of course, to come through here. The Cabinet Mountains formed during the Genesis flood, and then followed by the Great Ice Age, as we call it, produced by lobes of ice coming down from Canada and occupying parts of Montana, Washington, Idaho. And we are also standing then on the bottom of what used to be Lake Missoula, and most likely a drainage point for melting glaciers. But something very interesting happened here. An ice dam apparently breached just north of here, and water, they estimate to have been 2,000 feet high, rapidly moved through this area and flowing down through parts of Montana into Idaho, and across Washington, forming the Scablands, and then out into northwestern part of Oregon. Some flood, probably the greatest flood, they think, since the Genesis flood. But we're on the bottom of Lake Missoula, huge bottom. About the first 8 to 10 feet of land here is primarily sand. And then below that, you get into the cobbles and the boulders and so on. Very interesting part of this area that not many people realize is that the higher elevations are covered in quartzite boulders and cobbles. And these quartzite boulders, of course, are very, very hard, and they're marked with percussion marks. Now, first of all, the quartzite really is not natural to this area, and the percussion marks would indicate a lot of velocity in moving water and then a lot of water, where the boulders originally probably squared and jagged, bumped against each other and knocked these percussion marks. Anyway, a very interesting feature of the classic Lake Missoula flood. But we're on the bottom right here. Yesterday we were in a small town called Plains, Montana, southeast of here, where the Missoula flood washed out an awful lot of land. And of course you can get a good picture of what that flood did to the land. A lot of it's been scraped off, the topsoils and so on. But we got invited up to a very high point in the Missoula flood. In fact, the flood being about 2,000 feet high, we were almost at the top of that. So we could look out over the valley and see the effects of the rushing water, ripples and hummocks and channel points. It's really quite an interesting place if you get a chance to visit Plains, Montana. But up on top there were these quartzite boulders that I talked about, and many of them exhibiting these percussion marks tell a very interesting story of what must have happened here. The valley that we are in is the Clark Fork River Valley. formerly, of course, the Lake Missoula. And we've filmed some mud ripples marks here on the sand. And as you can tell by them, they look exactly like what we find in the rocks around here. And these are all over these mountains. It's a part of a bigger group called the Belt Supergroup. As you move toward Missoula, the rocks change color a bit into a kind of a reddish purple and shale. And in those rocks, estimated to be about 11 miles thick, are layer after layer after layer of shale that has preserved ripple marks. Now take a look at these ripple marks on the beach here that we've filmed underwater. And of course, those will disappear the next time some event happens here to wash them away. But just think, these mountains have ripple marks that are fossilized, just preserved in over 11 miles thick sedimentary rock. So the rock really had to have been laid down very quickly and covered very quickly so as to preserve those ripple marks in there. But very, very interesting. The Belt Supergroup. So this is a wonderful area if you've got time to spend here following Montana Highway 200 up from Missoula. You can trace the great Lake Missoula Flood and see a lot of what occurred before it in the form of the Cabinet Mountains. Very interesting place. Well worth the visit. Well, thanks for viewing.